Thank you for joining us. So really, we've got four main takeaways. Obviously, there could be a lot more. The first one is application inflation, and this just is about the number of colleges that students are applying to and the just vast amount of applications that colleges are receiving. And so we hear admissions reps just being almost overwhelmed by how many applications that they're receiving. We also sometimes see them, colleges not being able to give decisions when they said they were gonna because of that. So this is something that really started at the COVID era and has just continued. And I think probably the four of us have thought it would chill out, but it hasn't. So this continues, and this is one of the key factors that make selectivity more complicated right now. We also, at the same time, within that pool, we see the rise of selective majors, and this has really taken off. So when you think about a business major, say 7 years ago versus now, it's so much more selective. So when you're looking at a school, you can't just look at that overall rate. You've got to break it down and try to figure out how selective is business, because there's majors within schools that maybe have a 40% acceptance rate, but a 3% for computer science or something, right? So really, we have to drill down. So a lot of these things are not obvious. So for parents, I really do, I feel this way as a professional, and I'm sure many of you that aren't in this business, it's sometimes just startling to see how much some of this has shifted. And so, we understand that that's difficult to kind of digest the depth that this has taken on. We see a big shift towards early applications. Now, that's both early action, those where you're applying but you're not committing, and in early decision. Both of those pools we're seeing increase. And especially, we're located in Austin, Texas. So in the South, we're especially seeing early deadlines. So, we've seen some schools, adding earlier early action deadlines. So one of the things that this does is it just means that kids have to get started earlier, right? To be ready for, say, the Auburns of the world or the Clemsons of the world or the UVA, like all those schools that are giving us UNC, so we've got a lot of early deadlines in there. So, and that shifts from year to year. So we never know what's going to come up next year. And then I think, yeah, I mean, this is probably as big as application inflation, honestly. Test scores are back for sure. So, really, especially at selective schools, I really think if your student is planning on applying to a selective school, they need to have good test scores. And I think the I think in this year especially, we're just not seeing as many kids getting in test optional, and I saw a pretty high drop with a few kids who tried to go test optional to very selective schools. So although a few schools are still saying they're test optional in the selective range, I think you need to be, and of course it varies. There are some schools in there that are genuinely still test optional, but overall, tests are back. The students need to be, students going for selective schools need to be test prepping and making sure that they're getting the best score they possibly can, because that is going to impact the decisions that they receive. Of course, that's going to be at different levels, like everything at each school. But that's